Tonight will be history in the making. It's the first time ever that a young black kid with freckles gets the opportunity to host his own show at Columbia. It just so happens the premiere of The 30 is taking place during Black History Month. Neither is it a coincidence at all that on this very day in 1945, U.S. Marines raised this flag on Iwo Jima, the picture that is seen everywhere to this very day in black and white. And that is what I hope this show would do. Talk about issues that are greater than just black and white. Tonight, that journey begins. Welcome to The 30. Welcome to The 30. I'm Joshua Short, and tonight we've got an all-star lineup of guests. My interview with Chicago activist and sometimes controversial priest Father Pfleger will air a little bit later on tonight. We also got the creator of Connected Division, Austin Weich, as he gives us a unique look into how segregation in Chicago is seen throughout the subway system here. We've got all that and more, but first, the Short Circuit. The Short Circuit is a segment that focuses on campus-specific topics and issues that warrant a discussion or even a debate. Tonight, we'll discuss the controversial Title IX online course, a course that all students must take before they walk across the stage for graduation. But is it really a helpful tool towards educating students about sexual violence? Many say no. Some are unsure. Regardless, it's very controversial. And that's why my next guests are here to give us more clarification on Columbia's online course and topic in general. Joining me are Columbia student Savannah Ward and Shay Mayor to talk about it. Guys, how are we?
Good.
I'm curious to know, what is your first impression when you first heard about this online course and took it? What did you think? Let's start with you.
So when I took it, I just kept on realizing how cut out they left the LGBT community, the just men on men rape or female on female rape, or female to male rape.
Yeah.
And it's just so painful to know that so many communities are being hurt and tortured even, and no one's talking about it.
And it's interesting you mentioned that community. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but your first experiences or ideas when you saw it.
Right. Well, I was not a fan that it led in with, you must take this to graduate, because I am a survivor of sexual assault, and having to watch a basically 30-minute test of these women being sexually assaulted is very triggering, and a lot of sexual assault survivors have PTSD, so it was very, very hard for me to get through all of it.
Would you agree with that? I know you've experienced some tough times regarding this as well, right?
Definitely. The part where they had Dimitri, the rapist, come in and talk, that was scary, because getting to see inside someone's head who could technically have hurt me or be just so similar than someone who has hurt me was really upsetting.
What hasn't been addressed? What has not been addressed in this online course that you think should have been there?
Right.
Or at least said differently?
Yeah, well, I think the characters that they created in this test were very forgiving. Like the man in the first segment that rapes this woman is very much the next day like, oh my God, what have I done? But that is a very, very, I believe, rare scenario. I don't think that is a real accurate depiction of what really happens. Most men or women who do sexually assault others deny it to the court, so.
Let's be honest, did you finish the course?
Yes.
Did you finish the course?
I did not.
And now, it's a difference there. Did you do it because you had to graduate? They said you had to do it, right? You felt forced, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of like going against the grain in a way, forcing you to do something you don't want to do?
Definitely.
I don't know why, but that's just something a lot of people bring up. Is there evidence, though, in this course of victim blaming in any way? Have you seen it, or do you think they didn't do a good enough job of helping the victim in any way?
It was more like it's okay to rape, but you shouldn't really do it. So we're going to talk about this and give you tools how not to, because it's just not such a good thing to do. It wasn't like, no, rape is really, really, really horrible.
Same for you. Do you think there's victim blaming?
Well, even like the terminology that they use, as in saying victims, like I try my hardest not to use that term. I think we should be using survivors, because I think when we use the term victim, it makes those people victims, and we aren't victims, we're survivors of this traumatic experience.
What would you say to those who've been through this ordeal and then have to go back and take this course, this online mandatory requirement? What would you say to those victims, male or female or other?
I wouldn't say that it's just 30 minutes. You just have to sit there and do it for 30 minutes, because that's like saying, oh, you just have to sit there and take it for 30 minutes, and that's exactly what we don't want. I'd say that you can do this, you can make it through this, you can make it through anything, and the worst hell has already happened, so you can do this.
Me and you talked about this before the show, about how this is Colombia's way of, for lack of a better term, covering their asses.
Yes.
And could you explain more about that? Because when you told me this, you went off, and I
Yeah.
want you to go off to people watching too.
Right. So I was sexually assaulted on campus last year, and I was very much in the middle where I was like, I don't know if I want to report this to the school and the authorities. I don't know what this will mean to me. So I went onto Columbia's Title IX page, and I read through that very carefully. And as I read, I realized as I kept going down, they weren't going to protect me. They were going to figure out what happened and then wipe their hands of it so that I could not sue, or I could not get Columbia administration in trouble. And they do this by, for one, we're a dry campus. I was drunk when the incident happened, and in our Title IX, it says if you are drunk, we're still gonna care about that more than you being sexually assaulted. So I was obviously like, I'm not gonna tell anyone that.
Yeah.
No one's gonna care.
I just find that crazy, and this happens all the time on campus. You can
Yeah.
assume, right? I mean, this happens on campus, and people don't know about it. It's just scary. You had something to say before we wrap this up. You had something to say that's very important. I think you should say it. Take your time on it.
So the problem with that course as well was that they didn't talk about the fact that trans people, 50% of trans people approximately, are sexually assaulted at some point in their lives.
50%?
50%. 44% of all lesbians, 61% of all bisexual women, compared to the 35% of heterosexual women, are raped, physically assaulted, or stalked by an intimate partner. And we're not talking about this. We're not talking about the suffering that goes into it. And we didn't choose to be this way, but we're being raped for being this way. Like, personally, I was sexually assaulted after I told someone that I'm agender asexual, and then I was raped 5 minutes later. And just saying that, it's saying you should be ashamed of who you are. You should be changed from being who you are. And that should never, never happen. You should embrace who you are, and you shouldn't be tortured for it.
Thank you, too, for coming. It's a very, very tough topic to talk about, so we appreciate you coming here to talk about it. Thank you. Thank you. Really quickly, don't forget to follow our Periscope at Frequency TV to get a sneak peek at what goes on behind the scenes. Coming up in just a few moments, if you've ever ridden the red line, you'd realize that Chicago is a segregated city. We'll talk to the man responsible for this project entitled Connected Division as part of our Big Loop segment. But first, Father Pfleger visited Columbia earlier this month, and I spoke with the controversial activist about politics in Chicago and nationally. He also thinks that we are a segregated city. You guys are awesome.
Impact, the untold story. Well, Wednesday night's No Holds Barred conversation was, according to students, both informative and controversial.
We have a tale of two cities. We have downtown, North Shore, and then we have the south and the west sides.
Father Pfleger reflected on the 51 murders in January as an illness and gave his prognosis for the city.
On life support.
He also commented on many topics, including the city's political turmoil.
Rwanda is probably the worst thing I've ever seen in all my life that's happened to politics in Chicago and Illinois. Thousands of people lost their jobs in the last 7 months.
and even discussed national politics. When asked about the possibility of Donald Trump being president, his advice:
Move.
Father Flager was the inaugural speaker for MCA's Impact Series. He spoke to nearly 80 students discussing voting and staying true to who they are.
The event, held twice a semester by Multicultural Affairs, introduces students to people who've impacted their communities. Father Flager hopes that this discussion can lead to others making a positive impact of their own.
So don't sell out. Be true to yourself. Be true to your God. Be someone that changes the world and not fits in it.
There's one place on campus where you can get everything you could possibly need. Books, school supplies, hard drives, clothing, backpacks, school spirit, and even snacks. The Columbia Bookstore, located at 624 South Michigan, is a quick, convenient stop for students of all majors. Need to buy, rent, or sell books back? The Columbia Bookstore has you covered. Stop in today and see all of the possibilities we have to offer. Columbia College, Chicago. Frequency TV.
We now welcome Austin White to the 30. He is the curator of the photo project Connected Division. Austin, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you, Josh. How's it going?
Hey, what's going on, buddy? This is the real deal. We did like 8 mishaps earlier, so this is the real deal. What's up, man?
I'm just enjoying life, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great, man. Hey, really quickly, I just want to make sure that you're, let the people know at home where you are. You're not in Chicago. You're from Chicago, but you're on the East Coast, right?
No, I'm in the South. I'm in Atlanta, attending Morehouse College.
It's amazing because you've done so much to impact this city, and I don't think you even know it. You've got interviewed from tons of media outlets, news outlets here in the Windy City. So with that said, tell people at home about this project and what inspired you.
So this project is a photography project where I rode the red line from 95th to Howard, taking pictures of the train carts to capture the racial demographics of the people on the train and how those demographics shift throughout the city as a way to symbolize how divided the city is, because I feel like the demographics on the train is a reflection of the population of the surrounding communities of the train stops.
Be honest with me. Were you nervous doing any of this stuff? Were you scared? Tell me about it.
Initially, I was a little nervous because, I mean, anyone who's been on a red line knows it can get very sketchy. And then, you know, especially when you have a big, expensive camera with you as well. So initially, around my first round, I was a little nervous, but then after I started riding some more with the camera back and forth, I became comfortable, and then every other time was just fine.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a tough question. There are some naysayers about this project. What is the worst thing that you've heard thus far?
Actually, I haven't really heard any negative feedback from all the articles that have been written. I haven't really looked at the comment section. Actually, just the other day, I caught a glance, but I didn't really read too much into it. But I think some people were saying things along the lines of that some of it was inaccurate, or I mean, like I said, I didn't really read into it, but something along the lines of that.
You know what? I just want to be honest with you. There was something I read online, and I know I'm catching you off guard with this question, but I'm curious on your opinion. The picture that just showed up over here on our screen was the word divide. That was the same word that someone used on a forum on a local media site that actually gave your project accolades, gave it good accreditation. The guy responded by saying that we, as in us white people, are not racist, but we're just trying to keep ourselves safe. It's about self-preservation. I would never go on 35th Street or south of that on the red line because it's just scary. What do you think about that?
I feel like that's a very ignorant comment. I mean, that's actually really not what I made this project for, but that goes into it. Because this, aside from the segregation into the city, I want this project to spark up, conversations and bring perspective to different sides of town that people, have never been to and never seen before, and that they are just ignorant to. And this is just a perfect example of my project doing so. Although his comment doesn't necessarily revolve around segregation, it still sparks a conversation, which leads into another conversation. And just in response to that, like I said, simply ignorance, because there are some sketchy neighborhoods on the north side, the same way there are very nice neighborhoods on the south side. We have neighborhoods like Hyde Park, where Obama formerly lived. Beverly, it's so much more to the south side other than violence, but people just don't see it. And if you never go out south, then you will only believe what you see on the TV. But those who are actually out here, we know that that's not the case, and that's not true.
Really quickly, give us your information, your website, so people can look at this amazing project. I think it's important for everybody to view.
All right, my website is AusWyche, AusWyche media.webs.com. And you should be able to find Connected Division on there. And if you have problems finding that, you can find me on Twitter at AusWyche, AusWyche, and the link is in my bio. And the direct link to Connected Division is my very first pinned tweet.
Look at that self-promotion, man. Look at that trying to get all the Twitter stuff in, man. I just asked you for your website, but no, this is all great information, man. We thank you, Austin Wyche. I got your last name right finally. So, hey, we appreciate it, man. Again, I probably ruined your sleep schedule today. I called you, you're an hour early. I kept bugging you. So again, we here at the 30, we appreciate you, boss.
Oh, definitely, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. After the break, Whitney Williams joins us to talk about the Oscars, and I'll be playing a game of devil's advocate with her as well. We'll talk about it during our Nat Sound segment coming up. And don't forget, follow us on Periscope, Facebook, and Twitter at Frequency TV. And if you got some questions for my advice column later on, hit the mentions up right now. This is the 30.
The Learning Studio helped me pretty much reassemble my resume.
As a tutor, I work with students who speak English as a second language. I help people with economics and information management.
The Learning Studio is a great place for students to have a second pair of eyes look over their paper.
They help me stay on track to graduation.
All kinds of students at every level come in and can get help here, so we try and keep it open to everybody.
The Learning Studio is located at 618 South Michigan.
We take walk-in appointments, and we also do booking appointments online.
The Learning Studio is free to all students, so you can't beat that.
At this time in 5 days, the Academy Awards or Oscars will be live on the air, and just like you, I'd probably be on my couch live tweeting why Leo hasn't won a thing. Surrounding the festive night is a cyclical topic of race and the fact African Americans are not being recognized for their talents on the big screen. With that said, we bring in Columbia student Whitney Williams with more. Whitney, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic. What is your stance on this Oscar fiasco?
You know, honestly, I really don't give much credibility to the Oscars anymore, seeing as they don't feel like acknowledging talent in people who aren't white.
Really? So Jada is talking about boycotting and all of this rigmarole is going on. Is she speaking to the right people? Is that the right message? Because it goes much higher than the Oscars. It's about the writers and creators, correct?
Yeah, you know, there's different levels to how it works. So the first level is with the writers, but the problem is most people write with certain roles in mind and they write with themselves in mind. And so typically they write with white people in mind and therefore cast white people in those roles. But then, you know, it trickles down and then you can always change the casting later in production, but it's not happening.
It's not authentic. I think you spoke to one of my producers about the idea of that all of the major roles that African American, both women and men, have played in have been related to slavery or women being abusive parents or things of that nature. Is that a problem?
Yeah, that's a horrible problem. It's like the only roles that America can stand to see black people in is oppressed roles or negative roles. And then it's like, do you really get this image of who black people are?
So the majority of actors and actresses have their opinion, have their ideas about why there's this seemingly this segregation of what's good acting and what isn't. Here at Columbia, we have a problem as well. I was looking to do this article. Long story short, I wanted to interview someone of African American descent or somebody black from the cinema arts department.
Like me.
Exactly. But here's the thing, I wanted a teacher, and when I looked online, I only found one person, one teacher, one professor who was black.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a problem?
I would. And it's, I mean, I don't know how Columbia hires their teachers or their faculty, but most of the teachers that I've had have always been white, either men or women, and I've only ever had one black teacher and he only taught foundations courses. So I don't know what's going on with that.
It's a trickle-down effect from all the way to the Oscars here at home in Chicago. All right, we're about to play a really quick game called Devil's Advocate. Now, this is when I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to ask you some questions in the mindset of some of these ideas, these crazy, erroneous, egregious ideas from not just white people either, but many of them are white. I'm going to act as if I'm in that mindset, and I want to see how you respond. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. You got the BET Awards, the damn NAACP Image Awards. Why do you need the damn Oscars?
Okay, that's got to be the most ignorant thing I heard. It's not that we need the Oscars. The Oscars should be there to recognize talent. It's not there only for white people or for black people or for Mexicans. It's for talent in general and in acknowledging talent.
Yeah, but what I got look. Have you ever thought about just black folks ain't as talented as white people? I mean, just think about it. We got a talented bunch of people. Is it just y'all okay that?
No, have you seen Creed? Have you seen Creed? Straight out of Compton. Michael B. Jordan is amazing. Not to mention like a bunch of other black actors like Denzel Washington, and that's not it.
I just don't get it. There's a black guy hosting the damn Oscars. He's been black for a long time, as far as I'm concerned. Why are you guys complaining? You can't have your cake and eat it too.
You can't just put a black guy in front of an audience and be like, look, we're diverse. Because if the whole thing is about recognizing people's work, if you're not going to recognize more than one person or more than one type of person, like what are you doing?
What's the big deal with Oscars? Don't y'all got other stuff to be worried about and focused on, like the gang shooting kids and police brutality? What's going on?
There's plenty of things to focus on in many different places, but you know, you can't just ignore something because there's a lot of other things going on. We're going to fight for every single thing that we can.
That was awesome. I couldn't have done it better myself. Ladies and gentlemen, Whitney Williams, she's awesome. Did I say your name correct?
Yes, you did.
Okay, because we had a different name earlier and that was my fault. So we thank you so much for being here. Again, the Oscars are in a few days. Watch it. Don't be too impressed. After the break, we will be back with our advice column. We'll be back to talk about a lot of stuff, and you don't want to miss one of the questions. It's quite controversial. We'll be right back.
Looking for a nice, comfortable place to get creative? The Media Center, located on the 4th floor of 623 South Wabash, is a great spot for all students to come, hang out, and get things done. With access to the latest media creation software, an in-house library, and a fun, welcoming environment, the Media Resource Center is one of the best spots on campus for students of all majors.
What's her name?
Let me guess. You need a new computer. The Columbia Computer Store, located at 33 East Congress, can help you out. With all the newest gear and friendly staff, they are ready to fix, sell, or just answer questions. Stop by today so you can start working tomorrow.
It's about that time. Our last segment of the night will be me giving some lucky viewers advice. Subjects range from people having crushes on their in-laws to mothers sleeping with their child spouses. First advice is to @Wahoo35. So of recently, Josh, I've been struggling because there's this extremely attractive guy at my work and we both like each other. It's pretty obvious, but I struggle because he speaks pretty much only Spanish and we want to have this relationship blossom. But we don't know how to get past the language barrier, and I'm scared of saying the wrong thing in Spanish. And I was wondering, is it worth it to try, and how can I overcome this struggle? First of all, there was no grammatical marks in that question whatsoever, but I went through it. I made it. This, I think, is very importante to talk about, because if you are trying to be in a relationship, blossoming relationship at that, it's important to establish one of the key ideals of a relationship, which is communication. And communication starts at the fore. That's the one thing that you have to capitalize on. And if you can't even say hello to someone in Spanish, I think you either need to learn some Spanish, he needs to learn more English, or both of you guys need to rent some of my Rosetta Stone textbooks, just to be honest with you. Our next person seeking advice is @Ali Shapiro. That name is taken. I had a roommate who brought over a guy who had a friend who ended up robbing me. The roommate and I are no longer friends, but I want to reconnect. How do I go about it? Simple. Do not reconnect. That's like someone stabbing you and then saying, I want to stitch it up. And then the next day they stab you in the exact same spot. I don't care how close friends you guys were. It really doesn't make sense to befriend someone who betrayed your trust. Even if it wasn't her personally, it was someone that she trusted, because if she didn't, she wouldn't have let him over your house, right? So that's just my idea. I mean, do what you want, but in my opinion, I wouldn't go back to that person. I wouldn't go back to saying I want to befriend that person. But that's just me. Again, this is my advice to you. Final question goes to Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. I sometimes get a creepy vibe that my teacher is coming on to me. He'll do things like touch my leg or touch me on my back when looking at my artwork and giving me feedback. I just don't understand why he couldn't give me feedback or talk to me without touching me. Am I overreacting? What should I do to make him stop? I don't want this to affect the learning environment. I'm going to put this to you in less than 10 seconds. Tell someone, either him or somebody over him. It makes no sense somebody should be touching you in a private space, a private area by yourself. Hell, around students, it doesn't make sense. They can say you're failing. They can do it from a distance. If somebody came up to me, whether it be male or female, telling me, you're failing my class, I don't want them to hug me, rub my leg. Come on. Don't be crazy. And that does it for the 30. I want to thank all my guests tonight for their commentary and making this premiere a great one. Stay tuned in March for my next episode featuring Empire star, wait for it, Jussie Smollett, who plays the character Jamal Lyon for the crew, volunteers, and all of us at Frequency TV. Joshua Short saying so long from the Windy City.